Okay. Good morning. Okay, we're ready. We're live. Good morning. My name is Jean Walsh. I am the current president of the association, and I welcome you today to our annual association meeting. I'd like to ask Anita to take roll call. Present. Patty, if you could put the agenda up when you get a chance. Before we start, I have two public service announcements. If you still have in your possession a proxy, I ask that you go out to the registrar's desk and turn that proxy in so you can be given a valid ballot to vote. The second is get your RSV vaccine. That's all I can say. Get it, no matter what your doctor says. Okay. I need to make a motion to amend the agenda to include public comment after voting results. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any nays? Okay, Anita, please make note that we have amended the agenda to include public comment after the voting results. Today's meeting would not be possible without our volunteers. Most of them are still outside at the registrar's desk, and I just want to thank them publicly. Linda Towner, Irene Holtz, Donna Dolce, John Bolster, Mike Volpe, Tom Pezant, Ed Creeling, Jim Quackenbush, Gary Frenson, Kathy Bolster, Susan Peterson, Susan O'Hara, Pat O'Hara, Carol Peterson, and Patty Wolf, who's upstairs in the AV. Okay, thank you. Okay, we will now see, I will wait to see if we have a quorum. We had, as of last night, we had 71 proxies submitted, and I know there were more proxies being submitted this morning. It looks like we've got a good representation in the audience today. So we just need to see, wait a minute to see if we've got a quorum in order for the meeting to proceed. Maybe what I'll do while we're waiting for quorum, we'll go over a few meeting rules. Few housekeeping and meeting rules. Please either turn your cell phones off or put them on vibrate so there are no interruptions. I do ask that while there are only a couple of speakers today, primarily myself and Mr. Tipton, that you do respect anybody that gets up to the podium to speak. That includes our candidates, as well as anyone that would like to speak from the floor. As you can see, we have 3 mics set up. So I do ask that you give those same individuals the same respect and not interrupt them while they are speaking. If you feel that you need to carry on a conversation with one of your neighbors and it gets out of hand, I will ask one of our sergeant at arms to please come over to you and ask you to step outside to continue your meeting. There will be designated times for questions and answers throughout the agenda. We do ask that anyone speaking from the floor keep their comments to 3 minutes. Sue O'Hara will give you a indication as to 30 seconds left. Okay, halfway, as you're halfway through, and then 30 seconds. Oh, and you got to stop. Okay, all right. Okay. The only other thing also is that we ask that if you do need to leave the meeting before any voting takes place, that you do leave your ballots and your index cards with the registrar's desk. Maybe Harry's coming back with some good, Harry, you got some good news for me.
Gene, the quorum has been achieved. The exact number will be given to you shortly, but we can continue with this meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Harry. All right. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is the acceptance of the meeting minutes from last year. A draft of the meeting minutes from the 2022 Annual Association meeting were posted to the HOA website on October 1st. Do I have a motion from the floor? Joni, wait, let me finish. Do I have a motion from the floor to accept the meeting minutes from 2022? Okay. Anita, please make note that Joan Cohen made the first motion. Do I have a second? Okay. Please note that it was seconded by Carolyn Baranowski. Did I slaughter your name? Okay. All right. All right. So please make note that the meeting minutes from the 2022 Annual Association meeting have been accepted. They will be marked final and then posted to the HOA website. At this point in time, I would like to turn the meeting over to our guest speaker, Tom Tipton. Hopefully, many of you know that Tom is the COO of Ocean Atlantic, and he also represents the developer of our community, Ocean Atlantic.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Can I officially say happy holidays yet? I think we are inside November. It's good to see these faces. It's been a while since I had the chance to get up and talk with you all. And it's also good to see this association kind of growing and becoming a real functioning organization. It's nice. It's good for me anyway to see. I've been asked to come and give everyone an update on the expansion, what we call phase 13 of Independence. Talk a little bit about the finishing up of the initial Independence, some of the problems we've had with maintenance and roads, and then take whatever questions I can from you. And I'll do my best. I'm not sure if I'm going to get the halfway or the 3-minute warnings, but if I do, I'll try to wrap up. I know you guys have a long agenda. So, and Jeannie, are we doing questions while I'm here? Okay, thanks. Okay, so phase 13. We started talking about phase 13 over probably 2 years ago. And honestly, I was talking with Harry before the meeting. We expected that phase to have already been completed by now. We submitted the initial application, I think, 1.5 years ago, or actually more than that. And we have about 3 months of real site work to get the lots built. So if we had gotten the approval this time last year when we expected it, those lots would have been completed, and Shell Brothers would have been well on their way to selling them out. So I'm glad we're finally here. The approval process has taken much longer than we thought, but it is due to be either approved or not approved today, actually. Later this afternoon, it's on the agenda with the P&Z Council for the county. We do expect it to get approved, which means for us, once we get that approval, we can go to the next step with the contractors. Having taken a year or over a year to get this settled, we have to redo all of those numbers with the contractors, do all the pre-construction meetings and scheduling, and we'll get started. You'll probably start to see activity out there maybe before the end of the year, but most likely in the first quarter. So again, that will take about 3 months, 3-4 months maybe because of the winter. And then you'll see Shell Brothers start to sell lots and some vertical construction, see some homes built. Hard to say right now how long it's going to take us to sell 36 homes. In the past, that would be less than a year. But with the interest rate environment that we're seeing right now, which from our perspective has a little bit of a silver lining for the first, second, third quarters of next year, we you know, and I'm sure like all of you, saw the Fed kept rates flat for the last 2 months. And there's a pretty good feeling out there that that's the peak. And so it may flatten for a while, but we've seen the end of increases, which will help the real estate get back in order. The process, just to give you guys a quick reminder about the process for how this phase is actually added to your association. There is an 8th amendment to the declaration and bylaws that was drafted back when we did the first submission, or the actual submission for approval. That amendment has been kind of sitting on ice. As soon as we get the final approval, that amendment will be recorded and it will be part of the governing documents for the community. I believe you have copies of that on the website. If not, the recorded versions will go up. If we get approval this afternoon, we'll probably record those documents tomorrow, Monday, maybe early next week. So that, if you haven't seen those documents yet, it lays out the process for how those homes are incorporated into your association and into the club. And along with that, some of the agreements that we made to be able to do that. Which means once that document gets recorded, there can be no more members of the club. It'll be only the Independence homeowners, including Phase 13. Okay, any questions on Phase 13 or the how that process is going to happen? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just have the question, which I think a lot of us at Phase 12 are asking about the construction entrance for Phase 13.
So great question. The construction entrance has been a hot topic of conversation with the county and the association. That has been a known requirement, if you will, or a desire of both the declarant and the homeowner association and the homeowners to make sure that all of the construction traffic can come off of Harmons Hill Road, as opposed to come through Phase 12. That is where I stand, where the developer stands on this issue, is that is a condition of the preliminary hearing and the approved preliminary plan. So the declarant's on board with it, the county's on board with it. The only agency that kind of has any other authority over it is DelDOT, and the way the process works, we make the request, and it's kind of unknown what would happen if DelDOT said no. Like, no, we won't allow an entrance off of Harmons Hill. Because it's you've got 3 different agencies, and it would be a legal argument of some sort. I don't anticipate it to be a problem. I think we'll have debate over the life, like how long it takes to build and how long that construction entrance can stay there, largely to do with construction across the street for the other neighborhoods. But our desire is to keep it there for the life till the last home is built and then pull it out. So none of the heavy construction for sure, and none of the housing construction should come through the community. I know that's not a great answer, but it's as close as we're going to get right now.
Hey Tom, I'm Karen Eford. I'm on Abigail Adams as well, and my house backs up to Phase 13. We paid $10,000 for lot premium. Shell put in a tree line, which is doing nicely. But I'm hearing rumblings, I don't know if it's rumor or not, that with the pipe drainage and all that going to the Pond 7, that our tree line may be disrupted. Can you clarify what the situation is with that?
There is an easement that runs from call it Phase 13 to Pond 7, and there will be a drainage pipe that goes in. That's a 10-foot area, so a relatively small line. And to construct that or to get that pipe in, there may be some trees that have to be taken out, but they will be replaced. And yes, that'll all be replaced. It'll go back to the way it was intended. Hopefully
Replaced with
better.
trees that have been growing for 2 years, or replaced?
Well, we'll go as good as we can. I'm not sure we can get as big as the ones that are there now, but it depends, and they'll be closer, most likely. That is the plan. We'll replace them.
Good morning, Renee Novak.
Oh, sorry. Hi.
Our home was the last one constructed on Patrick Henry. I'm going to ask the question, the elephant in the room. When will the previous work be finished prior to and/or concurrent with the new phase? We have roads with huge potholes. We have a pond that has been dysfunctional, a swale that smells horrible. And I get a lot of this. The board has been working tirelessly, but it's glacial speed.
I'm not going to argue with you. We're not happy with the progress that's been made with call them closeout items on the roads. Well, I'll speak to the roads first. There is a process, and for any of you that have lived here for a while, you've heard this process before in these meetings, that the base pavement goes in, the construction happens, and then the final pavement goes on top. The reason for that is largely to your benefit as homeowners, that the construction traffic and activity will damage the roads. So the top coat of paving, if you will, goes in ideally after the construction is complete, or the bulk of the construction is complete. We realize the construction has been complete for some time at Independence. The reason for that has to do with the approval process in the county. I think most of you have already heard this story before, is that the county has to approve the roads before we can top coat pave them. So that, and that again is to your benefit, that approval happens so that any damage that does happen is repaired before the road is top coat paved. And then there's a 1-year process. You've seen this process on the east side of Independence, because we've gone through several of the roads over there. And it will, the complication, one of the complications at Independence had to do with the concrete swales. Those swales are within the right-of-way of the road, so the county has to approve those. There was some construction defects and problems with concrete swales that have been well documented with you guys. They are wrapping up, and we are supposed to be getting a punch list from the county that will allow us to start the actual repairs to get to a place where we can final pave the roads. That is the difference in that, kind of from the last time you probably heard from us, was that those repairs to the concrete swales seem to be wrapping up. In other words, the county is, I can't say finished because they have to approve them. And we've done the work, they've come out and changed it a few times, and we've moved that around, but I'm pretty confident we're gonna get to the end of that quickly. And then we'll move on to the county. And I can't give you specific dates because I'm not driving the train. The county's driving that train. Once they give us the punch list, the damage that we have to repair, we'll start the work. I guess and it makes sense to talk about that now, is that there's also a fair amount of damage that's been done to the roads, potholes and crumbling on the sides, and the alligator issues that are typical for a base coated road that need to be repaired before the top coat goes on. Part of our dilemma is when to do that. Like, for us to come in and do the repairs on those sections and then have the county come out and say, well, there's a patch here and you've got to redo it. We end up redoing those roads multiple times. and that just doesn't make sense. So some of it, depending on what happens with Artesian, you have, I'm not sure you guys know this, but Artesian is the water company is doing work on the roads in the front of the community that were already approved and turned over to the association. We hope, are going to hire the contractor that did the roads in the back, Jerry's Paving. If we can get that worked out while Jerry's Paving is on site, we will have them do a fair number of the repairs that are needed, temporary repairs prior to the county giving us approval. Does that make sense? I know you're not happy about it, but I'm not happy about it either. But I feel like it's gonna, we will, if we don't get busy, we will run into the winter again, and then the final coat paving that will happen will likely happen in the spring. I think that's probably the best I can do with a definitive answer right now.
Hello, Jerry Jansen, 29620 Martin Van Buren Drive. So I understand exactly what you're saying about the roads. That makes perfect sense. However, over by the Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, Abigail Adams area, there is a whole lot of gravel. Just sits there, the sharp gravel. Each time a car runs over it, it makes those roads, puts them in a little worse shape, a little worse shape, a little worse shape. And you'd think that that could be cleaned up, or at least brushed aside on a regular basis by somebody to take care of at least the further deterioration of those roads.
Understood. Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm Bill Thompson, live on Patrick Henry Circle. Once again, on the construction entrance, I understand there's two phases, one for the site prep and the other for the home building. Did I hear you say that Ocean Atlantic is requesting that the construction entrance extend through the entire building process?
Yes, sir.
So that is what you've requested?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, that's what we intend. I'm, cautiously optimistic is about as far as I can go, that that's what will happen at the end of the day. Other questions? So let me also in the conversations I've had with your board, there were questions about construction insurance was big. There were also questions about the concrete swales. We talked about road status and the gazebo landscaping in the west end of the community, or lack of landscaping, I can take from your laugh. That will, the simple answer to where we are in the process is deciding what landscape plan to use, how we want to take care of that area, what types of plants to use and how to make them work. We had a full design done with RSC, and it just didn't make sense. It was potted and didn't seem to make sense. So we had to go back to the drawing board, and we're gonna finalize a plan and get it started. I expect we'll get the planning, some of the drainage and whatnot done, but it doesn't make sense to plant a ton of plants in the winter. But we will dress it up and make it look good, as good as we can anyway, and then get some color in for the spring. Questions? About anything? Anything else?
Bill Thompson, once again, I might ask, is the gazebo going to be electrified? Will there be lighting there for evening use?
At this stage, there is no electricity in that area. That would take a project to get electricity to the area. We could look at solar for some safety lighting, but I wouldn't think that's going to be an area that will be able to have, full actual nighttime events or whatever, without changing the plans around.
Carol Golding, 29670 Franklin Roosevelt. On the back, when we were doing phase 12, we had a lot of construction vehicles going down Franklin Roosevelt, coming in the front entrance. I think you've got
especially if we get the road, that, the entrance in the back, that'll solve the problem. There's no reason for cement trucks and dump trucks full of stuff to be coming down Franklin Roosevelt for Phase 13. And I want, okay, it's a problem during 12.
Completely agree. We'll probably struggle with it as we usually do, but you're not going to get an argument from me on that. There should be no reason they come into Independence at all.
Right, so it should be made clear to the contractors who are doing the job.
It is, it will be, and I'm sure we'll have to, continually fight them over it. Hopefully, because of the way that's working, there's a main road that, Harmons Hill is not a bad road, so it isn't convenient to come in the front because it'll take them longer. So hopefully, it'll just be naturally that they come around the side. Anybody else? Ooh, careful.
Hi, I'm Wendy Biggs, 23833 Samuel Adams Circle, and I haven't heard anybody speak to you about the pickleball court, and I just needed to make sure that you understood that water drains from one of the new courts to the other new court anytime that there's any rain. And that's not the way something brand new should be finished. And I need to also understand when the pickleball court area will be completed. Thank you.
Thanks. We are, it's a shameless plug for the club. This isn't a club meeting, so I'm sure they're going to be angry with me for addressing club issues, but we're aware of there's a couple of other issues on the courts that we're working with the contractor on. One of the net poles is out of whack, and we have entrance issues, a trip hazard on the path, and we have the old gravel area between that and the bocce courts and all that are all on the punch list for the pickleball courts. So the short answer is they're not done yet. And the drainage, that's an issue where the guys that do the paint that's on top come back and look at. It's not unusual to have to push water off of courts, but it shouldn't sit for very long. And that's what we're aiming for. We're aware of the situation you have. Another shameless plug for the club while I have the microphone is for any of you that haven't met, Maureen's the new manager. She has replaced Melissa. She's out and about now. Hopefully you all get a chance to meet her. She's got some big shoes to fill. So take it easy on her for a little while, and then we'll have a good season. Anything else? Thanks, you guys.
So I just want to touch base on a couple of things that Tom had indicated, as well as even the comment that Karen Efried had made. But as Tom mentioned, the Phase 13 does go forward this afternoon before Planning and Zoning for final approval. If you've been attending the HOA meetings, the board meetings, or if you take the time to subscribe to the association news and read my weekly chats that go out, you'll know that the HOA was required to provide a letter of no objection to the planning and zoning with regard to the landscape plan as it relates to Phase 13, and the reason why the approval was required, not that we would approve the actual landscape plan for Phase 13, but how it would disturb the existing landscaping in Phase 12, okay? So we did provide that letter of no objection. However, we did put 3 elements of concern in that letter. The planning and zoning does not have to honor that. They can't enforce something that is not legally required, but we did ask for consideration to be given to a couple of the different types of trees, and a few other things. The letter that we did write is out on the website, and it was also attached to the Monday's weekly chat. So I ask that if you have any questions about the current status of Phase 13 and how that's proceeding, please continue to look for updates in the weekly chat, and if necessary, we'll send out a special edition of the weekly chat to bring the community up to date. Okay, we got 2 cars that need to be moved. A silver Mercedes, Delaware plate 195441, and a gray Bolt, Delaware plate PC 6489. Okay, all right. Patty, if you could put up the budget, I believe that's what's next on the agenda. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So there's 3 state requirements, or 3 requirements put in place by Delaware statute, or if you hear us call it a DECIA. There are 3 requirements in place for when you hold an association meeting. They are to present the budget for ratification, it is to hold the election of officers, and to also give a State of the Association speech. So the first required item is to take you through the 2024 proposed budget. The budget was approved by the board on October 5th unanimously. However, it does have to be presented and ratified before it can be accepted and managed to. As we still do not have a treasurer, and as acting treasurer, I'll take you through this morning. I did ask a couple of the committee members if they'd like this opportunity. They declined, but I know where you are in the audience, and I will ask you to help me answer questions that I can't get. So this, again, is at a very, very high level. As you know, a tremendous amount of work goes into preparing the budget every year. The Finance Committee starts as early as July, and it has to be done in time for the annual association meeting. So a lot of work goes into it. I think if you've been here for a couple of years, you'll know that Mike Volpe of the Finance Committee came up with this really awesome spreadsheet that we continue to use, and it just continues to get better in how we calculate down to the penny, believe it or not. So for operating income, we have 4 sources of income. We have the quarterly assessments that each one of us are required to pay into the community. We also have our resale money. For each home that is resold, there is a $6,000 impact fee. $5,000 goes to the clubhouse, and $1,000 of it comes to the association, and we use that to offset our operating expense. We also receive a rebate from Poor's Propane. The more propane we use as a community, the bigger the rebate we get. We get a quarterly rebate. We get a rebate every quarter based on the amount of usage of propane that we use collectively as a community. And then, of course, this year, starting in 2024 rather, we will see some significant interest earned from our investment accounts, something that we've not been able to realize up until starting the second quarter of this year, and of course into 2024. And we're hoping those interest rates on the CDs will continue to stay high. So our total operating income year to year increases by 6.3%. Next is our operating expenses, for which the purposes of this presentation, again, as I said, is broken down into 7 major categories. Single-family home maintenance, which is your landscaping, irrigation, and trash collection. That there is a 3.1% year-to-year increase, and that is basically just based on the contracts that we have with Sullivan's Landscape and Maintenance and with Blue Hen, our trash removal contract. Utilities, we're showing an 8.2% decrease from year to year. Dick Planbeck from the Finance Committee took about 2 or 3 years' worth of utility bills. We receive 15 invoices every month that have to be verified. And Dick went through 2 or 3 years' worth of invoices and put together a spreadsheet and did an analogy, and we showed that we have been historically, for at least the last couple of years, over budgeting the utility line. So we are going to reduce that utility line by 8%. Next, we have the maintenance of our common areas, which is landscaping, irrigation, pond maintenance, and enhancements, and that will be a 2.7 increase year to year. And then we have our costs for property management, legal fees, and insurance. And lastly, accounting and committee expense. As you will see, you're going to say, oh my God, there's a huge increase there of 68%. That large increase is due to the taxes that we will be required to pay on our interest earned. While we are considered a nonprofit, there is only so much interest we can earn without being taxed. One of the things the Finance Committee will be looking at prior to year end, I believe, Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is if we need to start paying a quarterly tax, or we'll just take and pay that tax when we file the tax return at the end of each fiscal year. Moving on to surplus funds, this is the excess cash that we continue to use to offset our operating costs. Back in 2021, Bill, we did a surplus, 2021? We did Bill did an extensive, Bill Oliva, who was part of the Finance Committee at the time, did an extensive study on how to utilize that surplus cash. Over the last 3 years, we have slowly given back that surplus cash to the community in the form of a reduced quarterly assessment. However, with costs going up and some other things that we wish to hold we hold money in contingency, a month and a half for emergency purposes, and we're also holding some money aside if there's some issues that need to be immediately repaired as a result of conveyance that the developer isn't required to do legally. We want to hold on to some of that money as well. But otherwise, that surplus cash is probably going to run out about 2026, I think, around there. Don't quote me, but that surplus cash. So you may see by 2026 or 2027 even a little bit more of an increase in our quarterly assessments. When it comes to, finally, we have our reserves. And as you all know, part of your quarterly assessment, so much goes into operating and so much goes into reserves. Our reserves are in very good health. Harry and I attend the